I'd like to welcome Nazanin Derakhshan to our little talk this evening about you, your work, and a celebration of all the things that you've achieved so far in your amazing career. We'd love to do this, at least partly because you did a keynote at the last ISSID conference in Vienna in 2025, which I thought was just astounding, and I was so impressed by all the really interesting work that you are doing. So perhaps you'd just like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit of career to date.
Thank you so much, Chris, for inviting me to do this. It's a great honour. And hello, everyone. I'm Nazanin Derakhshan, as Chris mentioned. I'm a professor in experimental psychopathology. So that's a bit of a mouthful, but I'm particularly interested in trying to explain individual differences in anxiety and depression from a cognitive neuroscience and social neuroscience perspective. I was initially interested in the subject of anxiety, and this goes back quite a while ago when I was actually quite a young teenager. I was about 12, 13, and I was a highly anxious child. And I wanted to kind of dig deep and try and find out why I was anxious and why subsequently I suffered periods of depression. Strong motivation, a strong desire to study psychology and understand all about anxiety. And that's exactly what I did. So I did a PhD on cognitive biases in anxiety, and then went on to develop a career, which to this date has been flourishing quite well, trying to understand the roots and mechanisms behind anxiety vulnerability. So why is it that some people are able to deal with their anxieties, and what is it about others who, get stuck on worries and kind of ruminative thoughts? They can't kind of snap out of those negative circles, negative cycles of ruminative thoughts and worrisome thoughts. So, I was invited to give a keynote talk by Mark Gosher, and I very much enjoyed giving the keynote talk. So thank you for that.
So can you tell us a little bit about what you talked about in your keynote and what your contribution is to this really important work on anxiety and depression?
So a major discovery of my work has been the role of attention control in explaining vulnerability and resilience in anxiety and depression. So attention control is an important function of working memory and what I call the CEO of the brain. It is a supervisory system that regulates attention to relevant and away from irrelevant material. Worrisome thoughts, ruminative thoughts occupy this kind of limited capacity of working memory and impact attention control. So attention control is reduced, processing efficiency is impaired, and this gives room for anxiety and depressive symptoms to develop. So a causal pathway to build in order to understand this mechanism is to boost attention control using adaptive cognitive training exercises, for example, using paced breathing exercises as interventions that we have used in our lab to see whether the improvement in attention control as a function of these interventions can reduce anxiety vulnerability. And we've tried and tested many models of interventions manipulating exactly those processes, and we have found some convincing evidence that it is possible to regulate and reduce anxiety-related thoughts in a sustainable way in different kinds of populations, and in fact more recently in clinical populations. A particular niche that I'm quite interested in, women with breast cancer diagnosis continue to experience anxiety and depression for a long time after active treatment.
Yeah, this strikes me as very important work that you're conducting. Can you tell me where it's likely to go in the future?
Well, we would like to make interventions accessible for community use. So what we're trying to do is to take the science out there into the real world in practice and enable the accessibility and usability, and the cost effectiveness of these interventions, of course, are very important for people. So we can empower people, they can take control back. For example, in cancer populations, we see a lot of loss of control and low self-esteem, low self-confidence, which are key predictors of anxiety and depression. So people can, in their own time, practice, engage in these interventions. They could be of digital form as well, so that they could take ownership, and improve workability, improve different aspects of life that they find challenging.
Nazanin, that is amazing and fabulous to talk to somebody who's at the top of their profession, and also someone who's very interested, I think, in translating their research work and their experimental research work in particular into applications that really will be able to change the lives of people, and especially some of the vulnerable people who you've been talking about. So that's really quite amazing. Perhaps we could just finish with one further quick question. What words might you say to inspire the next generation of researchers?
Keep that fire in your belly burning. Never give up. Academia, I'm not quite sure about industry, but academia is a roller coaster. I have had more rejections than acceptances. However, I did get promoted to full professor in my 30s in a top 5-star department in the UK. So you need to keep going, never give up, and take leadership, take ownership of your work. It's what you know, not who you know, as other people have constantly told me. It's what you know, because what you know can differentiate you from others. And so others will come to you to benefit from your work. And this will make you and your work unique. And especially to women out there, absolutely do not think about a black and white kind of male versus female world out there. We're all equal, and is your work that stands on its own at the end of the day. So keep going, be creative, have big ideas, and do not fear to test those big ideas. Sometimes you might be called like crazy or far-fetched, bit too ambitious. That's temporary. When you make it, it won't be that far-fetched. It will be people need, and you will be filling in a gap.
Nazanin, thank you so much for sharing a little bit of time with us today. I was truly inspired by the work that you've been conducting, and to have listened to your keynote at the ISSID conference was a tremendous pleasure, I think, for everybody in the audience. And it was a tremendous pleasure also for ISSID to have been able to invite you and for you to have accepted. So thank you so much. And I really wish you well for all those future papers, which I'm sure are just about to be submitted.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you very much.